Thing 7 says there's few countries are going to become rich through free trade, and I mean, of course, that this is completely counter to the mainstream belief these days that all countries that have become rich have done so through free trade and free market. But actually, when you look at the history of capitalism, actually there are very few countries that have become rich through free trade and free market policies. I mean, there was the Netherlands in the 18th century, and Hong Kong, if you can call it a country, in the 20th century. But apart from that, even countries like Britain and the United States, countries which people think invented free trade, were actually very protectionist in the early days when they needed to catch up with other people. I mean, that a lot of Americans think that this is the country of the free trade and free enterprise, but probably a few of them have known that between 1830 and the end of the Second World War, the United States had the highest industrial tariff rate in the world. It is a country where the theory of so-called infant industry protection, this argument that relatively backward economies need to protect and nurture their young producers against competition from superior producers abroad. This idea was actually first theorized by none other than the first Treasury Secretary of this country, Alexander Hamilton, in his famous report to the Congress on the subject of manufacturers, submitted in 1791. So I mean, there are a lot of myths about how free trade was central to the development of capitalism. Of course, international trade is central, but that is not the same as saying that free trade is central. So that this confusion between the importance of trade and importance of free trade, I think, is at the root of a lot of the problems these days, because, for example, the World Bank, the IMF, and various donor governments have tried to impose free trade policies on developing countries when they need a period of protection and nurturing. And in the last 30 years, a lot of developing countries have liberalized their trade, and in most countries, economic growth has collapsed, and their industries have been dying. So I mean, it's not just getting history right. I mean, these historical issues have great bearings on what we do today.